Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Super exciting today. We have someone on the cutting edge of AI and venture studios and just incredibly fascinating. Get ready for your minds to be blown. Chad Hancock, the founder of Built, co founder of multiple venture studios, and just a builder. I mean, you'll see he just likes to build stuff and super cool. And you get a insight into AI and AI agents and where the world is going here. So, Chad, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Kip.
You're very welcome. I usually start out with people's origin story, kind of like comic book, episode one. Who you are and how you got to be doing the cool stuff that you're doing.
Cool. I appreciate that. So it's nice to be able to take a little bit of time to talk about it too,
For sure.
because it doesn't typically fit into this to a 10-second pitch. So um, I'd say today, like for the last 20 years, I've been addicted to a certain time frame of a company. When it's has the ability to make its way into an emerging market, and there's things to build still. Um, So I actually grew up, both of my parents were entrepreneurs. They they built and designed homes and interiors, but as entrepreneurs, they actually innovated in their respective field to where they started manufacturing all of the materials, the cabinetry that they would install into people's homes. So they didn't outsource that stuff.
Okay.
Um, so I grew up in like a little manufacturing facility.
Huh.
Yeah, as soon as I was old enough, I was sweeping the floors, but just kind of seeing how things were made, and it pushed me into a career of design. So I was classically trained as a designer. I was always more focused on industrial design.
Okay.
When I went to school, though, there weren't like 20 different design positions that you can go to school for, as far as user experience designer or 3D designer. There was probably like three different options. So started in industrial design, learning how things are made of any scale. And that was right when, websites and I'd say more consumable coding languages were made available. So I'd go to school as a designer and I'd go home and write code
Huh.
as the hobby. And that kind of blossomed into a career to where I just wanted to keep on doing that. And I got very lucky in where I got jobs. That actually brought me to Minneapolis.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I got a job with a design firm, Duffy and Partners. They were fantastic. They gave somebody who was pretty young outside of college exposure to like the Fortune 500 branding. And I would always try to like push for to do things beyond the logo.
Uh-huh.
Let's build the bottle and really build the bottle. Rather than doing like just the interior design, like let's try to like shape the interior or shape the outside of the building and would always kind of push towards that. And while that was, I mean, it was an amazing experience to kind of get that exposure and to check that box where you wanted to see your work out in the world. That's the one thing as a designer, you just always you want to, you have this craving to put your creativity in places that you can point to and see it shaped out there.
Uh-huh.
The problem was we were a design firm. And I learned this just by I eventually left that firm because what would happen is you'd make this great portfolio piece, but by the time it made its way to the world, it just wasn't what you did.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay. And that curiosity, as far as, well, why doesn't it look like the thing I made? What happened?
Hmm.
That pulled me into getting curious about the marketing department. And the same thing would occur though. Like marketing departments would make recommendations or we'd build strategies. And again, great case studies on paper, but the thing that we recommended, it just didn't take shape the way it was supposed to. So this kind of craving, maybe because I grew up in a manufacturing facility where you could design, shape, and install the thing that you wanted, and it looks exactly like the way you wanted it.
Yes.
That's how I grew up. Like that was my 0 to 18 years old. That pushed me into learning finance and having conversations with CFOs. That pushed me
Okay.
into working with CEOs. And eventually, uh, I shaped a business that was a venture studio. Didn't really know what to call it back then, though.
Uh-huh.
This is some time ago. Um, but I'd say like 15 years ago, I I I got very lucky. Like I worked with the co-founders of Sport Engine, which is a local business that
Sure.
got pretty big. And we were working on we were a design firm, but then we were also building a digital product together and really shaping it and finding who those customers were and what to build. But we were doing it in a room. I mean, there wasn't a lot of heat in that room. So we would wear jackets to work, right?
Uh-huh.
Like just it was very, very early. There was just four of us. Um, and that's the time frame I'm addicted to.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, I've gotten to um, get this front row seat and work directly with the builders, like the founders, and be a builder myself to shape some really influential companies. Um,
That's
like
very
companies
cool.
like I got the front row seat at Field Nation, which would be like another
Uh-huh.
digital company,
Yeah.
or Purist, which is a local business. Gosh, they're one of my favorites that like they're scaling regenerative agriculture out of North America. They are the pea protein manufacturer for plant-based products.
Uh-huh.
It's an amazing family. They built an amazing company, but the the career that I've built has really been to try to accelerate the status of those businesses. Like use what I learned as a designer and the taste, like applying taste and craft to something,
Uh-huh.
but then use the exposure to internal operations, to making the unit economics work, to really pushing for execution in the physical space. Like, what does the product need to feel like? Um, and that that craving for that time period, and also that kind of urge for execution, like tasteful, elegant executions. I've been able to do that journey, I mean, probably close to 100 times in dozens of different markets, B2B, B2C, and built some amazing relationships along the way. Like really fun people that have really shifted the world into a better position.
That's incredible. Any,
That's the business card.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, you mentioned
Yeah.
Purist and others, Field Nation or and Sports Engine. Any particular builds or things that were like the most interesting or surprised you or the most fun, most memorable kind of memory burns for you?
Yeah, well, I'd say there's honestly surprises in all of them. But what I've learned is there are just specific variables that have to be in place pretty consistently to achieve the design goals of what a business is trying to do. So whether that's going to be, 10x the customers or um, 2x the customers, but 10x the value.
Hmm.
I guess I grew up like reading books where there's this like lightning moment and here's the
Uh-huh.
thing and this is what unlocked everything. And that
Yeah.
just has never been the case. Doing this so many times over and even founding some businesses myself. The variables, like it's not, I don't think it's a really romantic or sexy way to put it, but businesses or concepts or pieces of technology, they're people problems to
Uh-huh.
figure out. Um, it's just it's aligning a team, making sure the team is super capable, but that alignment is critical, right? Like the quickest way to stop a business from growing is if the leadership is misaligned on where it has to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I wouldn't say they're like against each other, but it can be just the vocabulary or the terms or the backgrounds are pushing the business in a few different directions, which can be pretty detrimental at a when you're a small group.
Sure.
But when you're running a bigger business, um, like 300 plus people, or I've even done this, like stood up companies inside of some of the large healthcare entities here, like Blue Cross, where you have to align a few thousand people.
Yes.
Everything under the leadership becomes pretty tribal, meaning you have a tribe of employees or management that like stick to the founder and want to go where the founder wants to go. And then you have a tribe of people that stick to the executive team and they
Mm-hmm.
want to go where the executive team goes. And that, so I always try to erase that as fast as possible, like erase the misalignments. Um, that's one of the businesses that I have built and kind of leveraged AI recently,
Uh-huh.
just to try to accelerate that process. But once that leadership's aligned, um, it gets so fun.
Uh-huh.
That's really the unlock. Because what happens when you're going into an emerging market, sometimes the product is already going to be baked, and that's what it is, and there hasn't been this attempt to sell it yet. But
Mm-hmm.
sales might
Yeah.
force misalignment. Or sometimes a business starts really early, product is not baked, and everything gets led by sales. But nobody necessarily questions like how many other people have that insight.
Mm-hmm.
Am I building a commodity on accident? Like those
Yes.
important questions are they can be super detrimental. But I had what I found, and I guess when I started doing this like venture studio idea a while ago, there wasn't a term of venture studio. I was just trying to essentially make sure that I could pay my mortgage and work on something awesome.
Uh-huh.
That gave me the permission to, like, unknowingly at that time, like the founders that I was working with, because I made that deal, like I don't need like the market value of the services that I'm going to give you. Um, I'll take a stake in the company. Back
Uh-huh.
before I even really knew what that meant, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, I just would say yes. Like, yep, let's go. Shareholder value, cool. I'll Google that later, but
Uh-huh.
I just want to work on the thing.
Yes.
Um, that it helped who I was working with, which was always the founder or the CEO. They just believed that, my fate was tied to their fate. That's the model that I have just been trying to replicate. Like, how do I establish trust to where they don't see me as a recommendation? They
Mm-hmm.
trust me to help build the product. They trust me to help run a budget. And by tying my fate, like my success to their success and really trying to say like, yeah, my fingerprints and, I'll tell my kids that I get to work on this thing.
Uh-huh.
This is what my legacy is going to be too. That trust is also like part of that alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mission has to be their mission. I can't be um, just trying to build a story to elevate myself, right? Like I've got to know those customers intimately. I've got to know the staff intimately, the product. Um, that's just kind of the journey I've been on. So there's, like I mentioned, Purist. That's one where we had several relationships. I met them as a venture studio,
Uh-huh.
and that was actually before they were even called Purists.
Okay.
So understanding that we have to take a business that is, already has customers and they're trying to move into this new emerging market, which is pea protein. Even the vocabulary wasn't established. Like they were inventing pea milk, which was not, doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily like sound as sexy in market to be
Uh-huh.
saying we're going to be making pea milk. But the product was very pure, super functional, and the whole team had to understand that, yep, like if we're gonna be the market influence, we can't be called world food processing.
Mm.
We have to have something that influences the market. We have to show the market what we're doing. Like we can't wait for them to try and invent something with a pea protein isolate.
Yeah.
We've got to invent it. So everyone aligned around that. The company started moving very fast and developing early influence in market. Like we leveraged brand. We leveraged some of the technology and really just kind of matured existing customers with that. So that was the venture studio
Mhm.
relationship. And then eventually, um, during COVID, actually, yeah, right at the beginning of COVID, I signed on as the chief design officer,
Okay.
which that's actually a great title. I love that
Uh-huh.
title because it allows me to go into any department,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you know? Um, like if somebody from finance shows up in the room, they kind of know what questions that person's going to ask and whatnot. But if you have a title like chief commercial officer or growth officer, design officer, it gives me that permission to do the same thing that I do in a small company, which
Hmm.
is kind of like go into a room, figure out the critical thing that has to happen, and if nobody's there to build it, I'll raise my hand and build it.
Uh-huh.
And you kind of get that permission. But that was the second relationship where uh, we diversified the structure of the business. We built new technologies together. We launched plant-based egg alternatives. We helped our customers launch a bunch of new products. And I even still have a close relationship with that company,
Uh-huh.
just continuing to leverage the things that they make and move it into consumer goods businesses, companies that I sit on the board of and still help steer into larger markets.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about what for our audience, what is a venture studio? So they
What is a venture
can understand
studio?
what does that mean when you say venture studio?
Yeah. So it's essentially an operating partner, the way that I run it. Um, and it's an operating partner we use the term venture because sometimes like I'll make an investment into a company and be its operating partner.
Okay.
Sometimes that business will help share the operational overhead of implementing a new platform or staff costs. But there's a relationship where me as a venture studio with contractors or teams gets an equity stake in a business. It's either going to be shareholder value or it's going to be some sort of a revenue share model, almost like a sales partner. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Sure.
So, sales partner that is the operations.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. There's a business that I'm working with now. Single founder has a really fantastic product in the financial technology space. As we cultivate customers for this, because it's at zero revenue right now,
Okay.
as we cultivate customers, I will be the hands-on developer in shaping the final product. So I'll be building, writing the code, cultivating the sales relationships, building the unit economics
Huh.
right alongside that original founder. But
Sure.
for somebody to just outsource that, like there was, I would say a few years ago, you could make a fantastic business offering those value propositions to big companies. And there's probably
Mhm.
a bunch of companies that still do, where you get like six-figure contracts to do all of that work. It's just the companies that I get attracted to, they can't say yes to those six-figure contracts.
Sure.
Um, and that's okay with me. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but it's helped me be very choosy on the businesses I work with. Like working in the industries of advancing human health,
Mm.
education platforms, food, nutrition platforms, those are typically not the money makers in a market. Not always, right? It's a lot easier to do something that keeps the market neutral or doesn't radically advance it, if that makes
Uh-huh.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, so by operating as this agreement, this shared agreement where If we win, we both win. And if we lose, we both lose. That's how I define a venture studio.
Sure.
I've been able to pick companies that like really make me and the people I get involved in those businesses feel very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like we worked with beautiful organizations, Worldwide Orphans, amazing company. It's been around for 20 years, but we helped shape a new business model that was actually a revenue generating model, not just kind of like a hand to mouth nonprofit business. Move those services into the United States because there's a bunch of need here. And yeah, the success stories are very human. And you get very moved by working on stuff like that. Um, Accelerating regenerative agriculture.
Mm.
Like I've done it locally out of Minnesota. I've worked with a group up in Canada to advance the agronomics around growing fava beans because there's
Huh.
a rich food source there. And we've invented things like, um, yeah, a better version of ice cream with
Really
a protein source. Yeah.
interesting.
Better for you snacks, better for you cereals, better for you like meat alternatives, even. Like my freezer's full of CPG products that I helped implement into market.
That's very cool.
But those stories, like that's actually been the payoff, is just kind of being able to continue to have conversations about the things that you make, um, and telling my kids, like, yeah, this is what dad's working on.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes when they get to eat it, that's why I get so attracted to CPG.
Sure.
It's the unit economics of consumer goods. They're very different than building a tech company.
Uh-huh.
A tech company, margins are very attractive. Customer adoption is very quick. Um, Putting together food science and logistics, there are a lot more headaches on that path. But when you can like give something to your child and they love eating it, and you get to say, "I helped make this," man, it's just like a huge payoff for me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, those are some of the journeys that I've been able to be on, and that journey just I can't stop returning to it. Like when a business starts to figure it all out, and let's say the team is 50 plus people, everybody starts to understand their role, and it works. Like I love that we get there.
Uh-huh.
But then I also understand that I can't really be there anymore because
Mhm.
running around and making a mess in different departments, it's almost like an interruption.
Right. Yeah.
So while I maintain relationships with those businesses and still try to cultivate customers or sales for those companies, typically I'd like to jump back into the mix, like back into the front lines where there's capital to raise, things to build, and you can just make huge moves when that's happening. When there's a bunch of open seats in a company,
Uh-huh.
but the potential is great, you can, it's like whenever you're learning anything new practically, you can make these gigantic advancements
Mm.
and really influence a market. Even if you don't make any money yet, you can make the market react to you and start talking about you. And that's kind of what I mean by just increasing the status of an organization in the market
Mm.
so that it has a presence, whether it's a two-person business, 10-person business, 200-person business. Like those are the levers that I'm always working to do and just add speed to. And lately, so I did leverage AI to build a platform to
Yes.
where I've been able to be introduced and facilitate many of the early strategic operations, the leadership alignment, the market research, the frameworks, the messaging frameworks, the all the necessary go-to-market materials. I've been able to condense that into a 5-hour work session.
Huh.
which is pretty radical because I used to, operate a full team to do this, and it would when we thought we were cool when we'd say we'd do it in 90 days. Um, so yeah, the the abilities that AI is presenting to us, I've been able to take advantage as a builder, build something to where the economics are much more digestible. And it's been the last 6 months have been fantastic. And I've been able to meet more businesses at these stages. And some of them I still continue to dive into.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Maybe talk a little bit more about the AI and and AI
sure,
agents and where that's headed and how part of what you're doing at Built
sure,
is leveraging that. That's so fascinating.
sure. So I'd say this is just a very exciting time in technology.
Hmm.
There are new languages and tools to work with every week. I mean, I don't even watch TV anymore. I just watch these tutorials, right? So as soon as we could start playing with AI as developers, I really when it became more consumable, when there was some scaffolding and some framework, um, I was trying to just create efficiencies for myself. Um, one of the processes that I apply when I get involved with anything, any organization, is I immediately go and find 100 versions of that product in the market.
Hmm.
And I typically don't stop until I get 100. I mean, the world is big. There's a lot of humans.
Right.
We generally all land on the same insight at the same time. So I never assume that, I'm the only one holding this insight, or I never assume that, oh, I can just outspend the market to
Uh-huh.
to win. And I've been humbled to figure that out.
Uh-huh.
But um, the that's what I was doing. I was using AI to try to like actually like what are 100 businesses that actually sell this thing already? And it started working, right? I was running into just like the consumer barriers, like things like token limits and
Hmm. Yeah.
how many prompts you could string together uh, to where it was still quality. Like they're out of the box, I'd say. And I'm really not trying to insult anybody. This, like, what AI is giving us is nothing short of just magical. Um, but as somebody who was trained by some pretty, world-class designers, like I always expect an A, and
Uh-huh.
if it's a B, I'm just not okay with it.
Hmm.
So those are some of the barriers I was running into, and I actually met somebody. I got very lucky. I met somebody building a prompting platform, which they still exist. They're still phenomenal. I help we It's another business where it's like, let's dive in and go.
Uh-huh.
But they helped me unlock these barriers, these data barriers, like what they were building and what I was building. It just there was a good relationship there to try to foster. And then I got the first research model to work. Great. Now I wanted to do my second research model. That started working, where I can pressure test any feature, like literally any feature definition in a business against like those top select competitors, grade it and make sure everything's data validated to see if it's even a good idea. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't even have to be real. Um, and it helps me de-risk things. Like that's what my process did. Like acting as a venture studio, I didn't have the dollars or even the team necessary, like the business analysts in my organization to operate like a venture fund. I had to assume that like the best players in the market had those things, and I would have to study the answers to the test.
Hmm.
That's why I'd find 100. Like if I can find 100, then assume that there's going to be some copycat behavior. Assume some of the winners have done the work to pay for the research. Figure out how to like understand those behaviors and how successful they were, and acknowledge that you're probably not going to outrun them.
Uh-huh.
Like if they already have market advantage, don't do that thing. Don't waste your energy. You're only going to get 1% of the revenue left on the table. So that diligence model just became this thing that would be replicated and it just worked. So it doesn't work because AI makes it happen.
Uh-huh.
This process has worked in enterprise businesses and early ventures. It's just AI and putting these workflows together, it's allowed it to turn into a 5-hour ordeal.
Huh.
And what happens in these rooms when we do this, it's really fantastic, is like the teams, uh, everybody gets energized. Everybody gets a little beat up at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Founders at the beginning, um, they never, and everybody's guilty of this, I should say. Nobody likes to go find 100 businesses that already say the thing that they want to bring to the market.
Uh-huh. Right.
So we purposefully avoid it. We always have this kind of bias to say, like, but me, like,
Mm-hmm.
no, but me. And that's okay. Like, we need that. That builds our resiliency. But when you flood this room with data
Huh.
and you see it all right in your face, like everything, their value propositions, their headlines, their price points, the pictures they use, the testimonials from customers that say that they love them. Like when you see all of that, first, first everything kind of breaks. Like the emotions break a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Think like that's the paper version of failing.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
didn't fail yet. We just now we know how we're going to fail.
Uh-huh. You're
And the
right.
team just wakes up. The team gets very, very energetic. And um, teams really start to understand like what the gears of a business are, like what things they have, what DNA they have, where they can combine those elements in a way that maybe they weren't asking before to shape a very simple strategy. And it's built on real stuff. Like it's not
Uh-huh.
a strategy on paper. Those never work. Like the team knows the vocabulary of how to say, these parts of our business, people think are special. We think we're special too. This is how we're going to build it to go forward. Here's how we shape it. When all that gets answered in the room, that's fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
that process, what's what's interesting, and I'll kind of get to this stuff around like agents.
Uh-huh.
And I am not the only person that can talk about this. This will be
Uh-huh.
a vocabulary word by the end of the year where we all have our own agents, and it's going to be like turning the lights on. Here's how I
Uh-huh.
use this agent. The the amount of data that we consume now to get these answers is very robust. It's probably more than I would ask anybody to remember, or to go in and try to find in a messaging framework to copy and paste into a presentation deck. So by by keeping all this data and shaping it in a way to where that becomes a knowledge base for an agent, it allows me to build something very useful for a company, to where they can get a reminder or an insight or an agent that writes new collateral material or leverages certain workflows. Agents become these tools for people. And it gives me a place to put all of this knowledge because I do like tactics.
Uh-huh.
I love simple strategies. I love getting into the tactics of execution. But before AI, like this, the tactics, everything would kind of sit within key players.
Sure.
And that's what I mean. Like companies are people.
Mm-hmm.
You want to assemble fantastic executors inside of a business. And with AI and just being able to put this into an agent that can be an assistant to anybody in the room,
Mm-hmm.
that that knowledge base becomes prolific. And this is new. I mean, agents are they're a few months old,
Uh-huh.
right? Um, there's new workflows on how to build them. There's new languages on how to give them shape, and that's exciting. And uh, we just have to let the market unfold. because there are people that care deeply about how to fine tune exactly what an agent does. What I've been doing is just making sure the data and the know-how and the knowledge base that an agent needs is the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's been able to get me happy with AI, like moving the needle from a B to an A.
Mm-hmm.
Because the simple prompting, or just that internal bias that all humans need, like AI, just in general, it does a great job of making us happy, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
what I put in, it's generally going to be incentivized to make me happy to keep on using that. I just don't know if it's the right answer.
Right. 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 Yes.
And it has been more the right answer than not. Um, but if it's just paying off my internal bias, like when we talk about using this to like shape companies and build things, if it's just if it's just working to make me happy, it's probably not going to work
Mm-hmm.
because there's a sentence I say very often on all of these journeys, and it typically stems from maybe an internal argument that we're having on taste and execution. Um, but when I'm working with a founder or a business leader, like a CEO who is a master of sales, or a founder who is a technical expert on the product, or a scientist, it's, I have to say this sentence that I can't care about what you like.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have the business. It does the thing they need them to do. They love it already.
Uh-huh.
I have to care about what our customers like.
Mm-hmm.
Their taste, their expectation has to trump the business leader's expectation.
Yes.
And that's what I mean on if AI is just making the founder happy, it might not actually be making the customers happy.
Uh-huh.
And by just trying to figure out like how do you actually train the knowledge base, train the AI on what to not say first. Don't just say the first thing. Don't say the 10th thing.
Uh-huh.
Say the pressure tested, like market validated
Mm-hmm.
thing as it relates specifically to the problem that you're working on. That's been the new development. And that was a platform that I built alongside this team down in Alabama. And like my knee-jerk reaction because of, I guess, the experience and career that I've had is to figure out how to connect it to revenue, how to
Mm-hmm.
monetize it, how to build enterprise functionality into it so that it's consumable. Um, that's that's like the latest platform that I have put into market. And, you know, and I've done it the same way you always do. Like you build it rough. You figure out what the highest quality value is, but you get it in front of customers, you put it in their hand, and that's kind of what I did. I didn't even know I was building a platform at the time. I was just going to the founders and friends that I've worked with in the past and said, "Look what I made it do today."
Uh-huh.
And then they would just say, "This is great, but what if it did this?" And we weren't monetizing then. Like it wasn't necessarily making money then, but I just had this craving to see if I could make it do that thing, right? And um, on accident, this turned into a wholly owned product, and
Mm-hmm.
we run over 60 companies through this in the last couple of months, and it's been creating value. And what's great is, I keep on learning how to make it more valuable to these
Mm-hmm.
organizations.
Yeah.
And the benefit of the market is if I didn't have that functionality a month ago, now I do have that functionality.
Huh.
So I'm not training a new LLM. Um, I'm I'm doing what I always typically do is I look at what are the tools in the market and how do I shape those to create value for somebody I really care about. S- Agents is the new thing. Like agents are powerful. They're a little messy,
Hmm.
but they're getting better. And in another month, there are going to be more tools available because there's this community, very similar to when um, the scaffolding of JavaScript became ubiquitous. Like
Hmm.
there's this community of builders that are so excited to create the tools for the market. Nobody gets to go in and say they have 10 years experience in this practice or in this
Right.
department. So we are all sitting on the starting line, the same starting line as all of these other like large build enterprises. And what we have today that wasn't in the market before is you have this global community of builders and developers that are eager to help. Like either that we're just eager to form communities around each other and um, accelerate. So that starting line is just the most attractive thing. It's a bit of a gold rush, and a lot of these things are going to commoditize right after we build them,
Uh-huh.
and that's okay because the way that this technology has empowered people is like not everything has to be the home run anymore.
Hmm.
It's you can make $100,000 product. And then all of a sudden the market might commoditize that, but that's okay because you haven't sunk your entire life savings into doing it.
Right. Right.
There's this grand difference where yeah, 10 years ago when I was doing the venture studio, I developed these biases on, if a company can make it or not. A lot of that had to do with capital,
Hmm.
like a lot. That was always a variable. If we didn't have the capital, we've got to go get the capital. But there's no way that we're going to build a team to build the thing we're dreaming about without that answer.
Yeah.
You can't just ask everybody to work for free or to take equity in something that is of no value.
Right.
Not when you're trying to move fast in a market.
Hmm.
That's different. I don't have to say that anymore,
Uh-huh.
right? It's if you see an opportunity, we can move very fast and build. And that's actually how I've been, you know, while I love doing these work sessions with people and pressure testing and um, trying to create this abundance of value in just a few hours, I love what happens next. So much so to where in some cases, I like to sign up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I actually want to go on that mission with you. Like, let's go break into that market. Um, there's a business that I'm absolutely in love with for early stage cancer diagnosis.
Yes. This is unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the companies and founders that I've been exposed to, it's been a beautiful career. I love the people I meet. This group called Oncodia, they're actually local, and they developed this product in a non-traditional manner. Very technically trained. The
Hmm.
product works. But because of how they developed it, they can do a screen for stage zero diagnosis, which is very early, very high likelihood of survival. I think it's like 99.9% at stage zero. So they can screen for multiple types of cancer, like starting with the big ones as far as breast cancer, colorectal, lung cancer. Um, they can do this on a very small sample of blood, possibly even one taken at home where you actually have to send it into lab. This is all
Uh-huh.
done through lab testing, but the instrumentation that they developed in a non-traditional manner, the way that they have been able to leverage technology as a small team, they can do this for a fraction of the cost of a diagnosis. Like
Hmm.
their internal cost of goods for a single diagnosis for one person is $1.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
$1.
That's unbelievable.
And that's not the market cost, but if the market cost today for this from the most innovative company currently on the planet is $900 or
Uh-huh.
$1,000, if you have a low enough cost of goods early on, you can bring this to market at scale for $149. So I think 1/5 of the cost. You could do this for less than going to the dentist, right? So then personal diagnosis um, can become something to where everybody's way more aware of their health
Uh-huh.
and cancer, just because that's the problem that it's like it is the most painful problem in our market.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such an unfair disease.
Right, right.
So I met this company and the technology is it's baked. I mean, I've taken the test twice.
Uh-huh.
It's so to see that it's real, to understand the hurdles that they have to go through next, which is it's the typical hurdles. It's FDA testing, it's scale trial. That all involves time. This is a medical business.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to do that. But to be on that mission, selfishly, I just want to find a way to do that with them.
Yes,
And the founders
absolutely.
are, yeah, the founders are just incredible people. So I'll do what I can to help navigate commercialization, to help bring this to the world, to make sure the world knows about it, and that Oncodia becomes a vocabulary word and it doesn't get lost into the ether of healthcare, which
Uh-huh.
sometimes these things do. And yeah, that's a journey where I'll sign up for that all day.
For sure. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
How about, I mean, and that's obviously an example, but just trends, opportunities in the market. We've talked about a bunch of them, but that you're most excited about or things that are just absolutely got you fired up and then how you're positioning yourself to kind of capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah, I'd say the largest shift in the market is the time to market.
Hmm.
That is that's going to be a game changer. And there's more question marks than answers. So, something that maybe somebody like me can be a weakness is this like shiny object syndrome.
Uh-huh.
Like, I want to go work on that. I want to go work on that. I want
Yeah.
to go work on that. Um, the there are things that the latest technologies have unlocked for me, which just kind of makes me a better version of me. The like I love to be a builder. I love to be hands-on. I have a very, very high acceptance uh, tolerance of taste, like quality of execution. Um, so I'll talk about two things. One is AI has finally given me this ability to scale those skill sets. Like in many cases, I was a bottleneck to myself.
Hmm.
Um, it was just a very, very hard thing to try to replicate. So when we were doing the venture studio, we could only earn a few $1 million a year, um, because the further away we got from that center of quality, the less proud we were of the work.
Yes.
Um, and then the market takes care of the rest. Like if the
Hmm.
execution is closer to the commodity expectation, the unit economics aren't there, and the story sucks. AI really has changed that. So um, I used to look at the cost of building a digital presence, for example,
Uh-huh.
and that would be, you know, anywhere from $20,000 to a six-figure build, depending on the table stakes of the market. Like sometimes just to play a game in a certain marketplace, like fintech, for example,
Uh-huh.
um, if you're up against Stripe, they have an amazing amount of documentation in the market as just what developers expect. So if you don't meet that standard, like your expectation, your cost of entry, all of that has to change. So to build the Stripe website and then you get to do something better, that was an expensive thing. Now it's like $100. And I was frustrated about that. Like to me, I was just kind of like, well, why is this expectation that everybody's going to get a great website for $100? I have this, my frustrations are typically when somebody's trying to figure out how to treat the thing most special to them like a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Some part of their go-to-market where the customer expects it to be a 10, but the founder's treating it like a commodity. That there's misalignment there, right?
Yes.
And I had this anger. This was just a few weeks ago where yeah, like if you expect to put something out in the world for $100, of course it's going to suck and
Right.
nobody's going to want to use it. And then on Saturday, I turned the problem on its head as far as what if everybody's website costs $100 and there's no such thing as a $10,000 website or a $20,000 website? How do we get there?
Uh-huh.
How do you make margin in that? How do I create an economy around that to where other builders can make margin in that and build websites for the businesses I want to accelerate
Mm-hmm.
for $100? So and you tie together some of this agentic workflow. Um, you build a product to where you can leverage a global marketplace of website templates,
Mm.
thousands of them, where people have spent hours and hours making them look beautiful. I built a workflow to where you can buy any template for like $30, plug in that URL, and an agent will read the website, rewrite it based on its exact structure, and even make visual languages to fill the pictures. So you have the $30 website, you have probably a $4 workflow
Mm-hmm.
as far as like how much that model is going to cost to run. And you effectively like the labor is probably the 30 minutes to copy and paste some of the copy, but it gets somebody to that design goal as far as what does the world look like to where websites are no longer this revenue driver for consulting firms and design and build shops.
Yeah.
It's now a strength at scale because I love to invest in product.
Mm-hmm.
Go to market has always been an investment for a company. I think that's changing. So that's what's very
Okay.
exciting is
Yeah.
that go to market shift is enabling us to invest more in product. The barrier to entry to gain influence in a market is coming down radically. So the market owners aren't going to be the market owners anymore. That's kind of what's exciting. I
Yes.
mean, I can say like the fintech product I'm helping to build. That's what I'm excited about. Or the oncology business. That's what I'm excited about. But they're going to find their traction in market. They're going to succeed, and I'm very excited about that. But then I'm a creature of habit. In 2 years, I'm going to be excited about another early stage venture.
Uh-huh.
But the exciting thing is the barriers to market entry, we can get closer to our customers than ever before. It presents this new economy. Like what does that go to market look like? What does the cost of a build look like? All of these should be questions because it's changed radically. And some people aren't necessarily like seeing this opportunity. It's scarier to them
Mm-hmm.
because they're losing the way they made money before. And there is an absolute threat to that, but the opportunity is right on the other side. You just
Right.
you just turn this problem on its head.
Mm-hmm.
Like the moment I built my platform, I told my wife, I think I just put myself out of the job.
Yeah.
Right? I'm no longer hireable to do this work anymore. Um, so that's been exciting. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is just the the way I used to leverage brand in a market. I'm a huge believer in brand. I was
Mm-hmm.
classically trained by some very large influential designers on what brand is, what brand is not. And what brand is very different now. And again, this has been a bit of a radical shift. Brand used to be polish. And I think there's always going to be an appetite for polish. But it could be a headline. It could be a website. You could manifest a market presence, and that would work. That's where you would get those demands from customers as far as I just need something to pop. Like whoever could make something pop
Uh-huh.
would get the contract or get the job, or that was a satisfactory grade.
Yeah.
And that was true, but brand is now way more transparent. Headlines don't get you to the finish line. It's people want to know who's building what, who's making it, who's the mad scientist behind the product, and that has become the conversation.
Hmm.
So this content economy, as far as what is a brand, it's more about how many channels and how many different places can you be on? How does the founder get exposure into different podcasts and different conversations and get visibility into different places? Because the founder has never been more relevant than they are today.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wants to know that answer. People are typically paying for the first product just to feel like they have access to that founder
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because they like to talk about it. And brand can also make money in a new way, right? Like the thing that we're talking on today. This is part of that content economy.
Right.
It becomes part of the product, part of the revenue stream. And what that shapes into is very exciting. So I've even, with a couple collaborators, I've started to build a documentary series.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it's called The Purposeful Founder.
Very
So
cool.
so the platform I built has given me this kind of permission to meet more fascinating people. And I like to just get that on camera.
Yes.
And I like to do it with um, polish. Like we do this, it's called the Purposeful Founder Project. I like to interview them about what they're building and why. And I typically race right at the tension. Like, how does it fail?
Uh-huh.
Who are you competing with?
Yeah.
How's it failed already? How much capital do you need? Like what that is the conversation that I've always been exposed to. Like I get this front row seat to watch these amazing founders build amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, people don't get exposure to that. We get exposed to the
Right.
success stories, right? Like I talk about the Purists and the Field Nations and the joy of building the Sport Engine platform. And like we learn about this stuff years after they've achieved success. And those are the things floating around the market. What I'm trying to build is a meaningful window into the reality and the magic of the hard part.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to do this and organize 100 founders and get them on camera, talk about what they're building. Design Codia business will be one. Um, you know, we've done 7 so far.
Okay.
Um, we're on track to have a dozen, and then that's kind of what I want to release to the world. But it's that window, that glimpse, as far as like the wisdom that you get from hearing it the moment it happens. Like in some of these conversations, we'll talk about a failure that happened last week,
Huh.
and the the knowledge you get from other founders going through this,
Mm.
that's helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as far as me saying whether it's a tech company or a physical goods company, it's a people company. You have to figure out the people problem. You have to organize that group. That's I didn't invent that, but I did get exposure into how much that matters and why I always say that first. I just think that those nuggets of wisdom like that, I want to make that part of this content economy.
Yeah. I can
Yeah,
see huge value in that. Huge value.
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
it's you know, it's just trying to bring more people into the world that I get exposed to because it has been fascinating. Like my aspirations, my measures of success was it was almost like wisdom. I was just curious. I had to know how it worked. How does
Mm-hmm.
the machine work? Like what are the answers? who can tell me? And I got exposed to just really phenomenal people from all over the country and actually all over the world. So my first goal wasn't necessarily, I didn't design success as like a number or a like a financial target,
Uh-huh.
but the value I got out of that, like that's something where I just want to get, I got to show more people how fun this is.
Uh-huh.
And as a byproduct, if I can introduce 100 founders that are building products that can reshape our world,
Hmm.
but you know that they're still building it, I think there can be you can participate with them.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you actually got exposure to Amazon before it went public and you knew the struggles,
Mm-hmm.
but you might have actually had something to say in that conversation and you might have been able to help speed things up.
Uh-huh. Right.
Maybe not Amazon, but think of all the things that aren't Amazon. Think of all the businesses where they just didn't have the right person at the table, and that's why it didn't work.
Uh-huh.
So if you can create exposure to this, and maybe 100's too small, but that's my number to start.
Yeah.
I want to connect those founders to those people,
Right. Yes.
right?
Like
I
that's
want, I
huge
want to,
value right there. I mean,
yeah,
unbelievable.
I want to give permission to say, yeah, like I also believe in that oncology business, or I also believe in that energy business, or I also believe into that food organization. And you can email them, you can call them, you can have an exchange because you can add value and just speed that up. And again, because the barriers are coming down
Huh.
and more exposure, that's just my way of kind of participating in this new space and what brand is. It's not, still love building a good logo every once in a while, but the founders are the thing. Like they are the authenticity. And they don't what's great is they don't have to be media trained anymore.
Right. Right.
It's almost better if they're
Better if they're
not.
not. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that like this new definition, I just love making it,
Uh-huh.
you know.
That's incredible. How about for like aspire like based on your experience and exposure for like aspiring entrepreneurs, whether it's young people or it's people in corporate that are wanting to do their own thing, any advice or thoughts you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
What a great question. I'm sure there's a bunch of different answers to that. I'm going to answer mine based on maybe just the Minnesota community, if
Okay,
that's
perfect.
because I think there are some behaviors that happen in the Minnesota community that I would love to see changed from how I've seen other ecosystems seemingly being more successful from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a new ecosystem of business building in Austin, Texas,
Uh-huh.
and the behaviors that are happening there. I mean, everybody likes to say Silicon Valley, but it is real. It's like a
Yeah.
real thing. It's not just the capital that's there. It's the way that these early stage founders interact with each other. I would just urge people to share more.
Uh-huh.
Share it when it's broken, share it when it's rough. Don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. I think there's just in this market locally, I feel like there's an air of protection around an idea and it slows things down a bit. And it probably even makes businesses fail that shouldn't fail
Mm-hmm.
because there is a bright group of people. Like there are some really talented people in this market that can build some really amazing things. And we actually do have advantages here in Minnesota that could be leveraged. But the way to get there is to be transparent with what you're building, share it with people. because founders never have enough money
Right.
to go fast.
Uh-huh.
But if you share this stuff, you make friends, and
Hmm.
friends help each other. And friends can give you an hour or two or 10 to help move your product a little bit further. And that sharing relationship or that sharing behavior, I just want it to speed up here.
Uh-huh.
I just want to, it's like, man, the number of NDAs I've had to look at in
Right.
Minnesota
Yes.
is
Yes.
ridiculous compared to like my example, where I monetized a platform in 2.5 months and generated 6 figures of revenue on it because I just opened up my code base to this guy in Alabama and he
Uh-huh.
opened up his. And both companies are doing well. So that that has to be a shift, I think. And I've seen those characteristics here, and I've seen them stifled here.
Hmm.
So be transparent, show the flaws, like find friends. That's how you go faster.
Yeah. That's spot on. Before you said that, like my frame reference would have been people in Minnesota just don't ask for help. And it's the mindset and everything you just described. They don't ask for help when they need it. Whereas people in Austin or Silicon Valley or other places are constantly looking. I mean, it's like professional athletes, constantly looking for help and how can I get a fraction better if they're struggling with something, like ask for help instead of
Yeah.
just, yeah.
And maybe it's just maturity, but
Hmm.
I think there's just an understanding where, um, like maybe somebody else can build it better than me. And I'll accept the risk that they can just to see if they can help me,
Yeah.
right? They can't, they're relentless on product. And that's also how to get the conversation going. Like
Yes.
this idea of have an idea, go in a dark hole, build it for a while, and then figure out how to market it. Like the building is the marketing.
Right. Right.
Share it when it's rough. If it's a if it has the ability to create value in the future, whoever you share it with, they're incentivized to tell their friends.
Right.
They're just, we love to tell those stories. And I would love to tell those stories about Minnesota businesses, but it's really about just opening up and being vulnerable and believing in yourself. Like if you're a great product builder or you're a great salesperson, believe that you can win in your game, but ask for help where your weaknesses are. Don't ask for revenue first and then go and try
Hmm.
and find it, or don't necessarily even ask for investment first and then try and go find it. You can get so much farther by just asking for participants. Those people become your customers. Those people become your stakeholders. It's
Yes.
a it's just a different behavior. And I just would love to see more of it here.
That's excellent. All right. Final question. This has been fascinating. Success. What's your personal definition of success? You can take that any way you want.
I always answer this the same way. I want my kids to be able to point at the things I did and be very proud.
Mm,
Yeah. So that's my definition. And it's it's given me a fantastic career so far.
that's perfect. Well, Chad, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I mean, it's always fun when I get to talk to you, but like recording this and doing this, so much fun, fascinating. And we'll put in the show notes your socials and way people can reach out to you and learn more about Built and the other things you have going and your documentary series.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
yeah. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure having you on here. It's awesome to see you. Love for those that are just listening on audio, he's got this awesome purple background. I mean, talk about branding. Like that'll stand out as we start to crank out the
Yeah, it's
content
not
on social media. It's pretty cool.
a little different than a library behind me.
That's right.
of half the books I haven't read.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good. Well, thank you so much. And that was a great way to end with the advice on kind of the entrepreneurial environment here in the Twin Cities, because you're exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. I think um the tide is rising. It's looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All
cool.
right. Thanks,
All right.
Kip. I
Well, thanks so
appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.